Hello, everybody, and welcome to the BrightTALK Academy. My name is David Pitta. I'm CMO at BrightTALK. And with me today, I have Christian with UserGems. Welcome, Christian.
Hey, David. Glad to be here.
Christian, just before I jump in, do a little housekeeping. If you don't mind introducing yourself and a little bit about your company, and then we'll jump into today's story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Christian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of UserGems. So we're software that provides contact level intelligence to revenue teams. So we tell you we give you more information about the contacts and the customers and prospects that matter to you, like people that change their job, or when in target accounts you get new executives. And I'm very excited to be here and talk with you about what we did together.
Yeah, and again, I'm David, CMO at BrightTALK, and I have been using UserGems this year, and it's one of those stories, one of those programs that you stumble upon and you realize, wow, that was easy to get started, and it's had positive ROI. So our vision, of course, if you're either new or returning to the BrightTALK Academy, is we like to share all of the learnings that we have, and this is one that I had to share with the community here on BrightTALK. So we're going to get started in just a second. I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. So this will be available on demand immediately afterwards. So you can always come back and check any part of today's presentation out. I also would encourage you along the way to ask any questions you might have. You can do that within the player on the page that you're on right below it. There's a box to ask some questions. Feel free to do that at any time, and we'll bring the questions throughout the presentation or even address them at the end as needed. There's also a button for attachments. So we've attached a link to go and check out UserGems, make it nice and easy for you to go find them. If you're interested in BrightTALK and our webinar and video solutions or reaching your target audience, certainly there's a link to go and do that. You can connect with myself or Christian. And for those that would like it, there's a live transcription of what we're saying today that's coming through below as well in the attachments. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to switch over. We actually are going to kind of move between some slides and some video. So I'm going to go ahead and get us back over to the slides, and we'll start to step through today's story. So again, let's set it up with the question here first. And the question that I had earlier this year, there's lots of signals that marketers can grab onto. For us, one signal we've been tracking for over a decade is people who sponsor physical events. It's a good signal. It's a direct correlation to maybe what type of trade show they are sponsoring, and we've got similar virtual trade shows that people can sponsor. So that's an example of one signal that we know that drives value. Another signal, one that's been fleeting for, again, over a decade I've been here, has been monitoring our customers. And when new buyers come into current client accounts, or where existing buyers might leave current customer accounts. And then we've got an ABM layer that we've introduced here over the last couple of years as well. So the question we had was, how do we stay on top of this and monitor our customers and the buyer changes within their company or role? And as I mentioned, I think it was late last year when Christian, someone on your team, had reached out. I believe it was on LinkedIn. It said something around monitoring job changes. That piqued my interest. And so I asked to have a conversation, and that's where we got started. And some of the stats that you guys shared, Christian, are on this slide. So why don't you just take us through the learnings that you found over the years around monitoring buyer job changes?
Fantastic. Thanks for that intro. Yeah, so for us, usually keeping track of when people change and when they move to new companies, and actually that happens quite a bit. That's not an ad hoc play, because a Salesforce and LinkedIn say 30% of people change their job every year. I mean, we know this, we change jobs, our managers change jobs, even the people in opportunities change their job, and oftentimes that they get stale because of this. So this is a play that if you have, for example, 10,000 contacts, this means that 3,000 of them change every year. And this creates a lot of opportunity for you to keep in touch with them, nurture the relationship that you've created. And the interesting part is that if you talk to salespeople and ask them what type of leads they prefer, then obviously, like if they have a chance to reach out to someone that already knows the product or the company, then they prefer this. 80% prioritize these kind of leads. And there are a few statistics that I really like, and one of these is that how much timeliness actually matters. And we know this, like when we start a new role and there's a new executive, and the first thing we do is we evaluate the situation we've been given. So what are the tools that I need? What are the people that I need? What are the processes that I need to be successful on the job? And that's why new executives spend 70% of their budget in the first 100 days. So this means that as soon as someone starts a new role or someone changes their job, we want to be in there early, congratulate them on the job, and be part of this conversation. And in addition, like if we are the first one, if we're in there before our competitor, and we help drive the value proposition, we help them figure out and evaluate what they need, then this increases our win rate by 3 times. So all of this, very important to be in there early and continue to have the conversation with the people we might already know.
Got it. Thanks, Christian. And another thing, just in relation to that, one thing that was also challenging, I think, for us was because we weren't able to really monitor these job changes in real time. What would happen is you do get lucky sometimes, right? People that are having success with you, they change jobs. They're not, they don't offer that information up to vendors quite often, before they end up leaving. All of a sudden, the communication channel is shut down and they move to a job. Now, in some cases, they have had success with us. They go to a different company. They just bring their playbook and their strategy in, and they reach out to us and they fill out a contact request. And what was happening was we weren't making the connection in CRM. So we would route it to, a new rep who would go through a brand new sales cycle as if we never knew this customer. Whereas we already have people in the business who had previous relationships with that buyer who are probably better off at continuing the conversation and welcoming them to a new role. So that was quite frustrating for us throughout that process. And as we'll talk about it, there's different ways this can help you, kind of minimize churn, grow revenues. So we're going to share that story. So today what I'm going to do, folks, with us is I'm going to break this down into kind of 4 categories. First is how do you identify these high value accounts and people? Like, what are the tips and tricks there? I'll just show you the very simple model that we use to get started. Next, we'll go through how do you actually activate these records. Third, we'll talk about the win and the success that we've had, and then we'll give you some key insights just on how do you sustain momentum throughout this process. So let me get back to the screen. I'm just going to start to step us through that 4-step process. So the first thing I learned with working with Christian and team was, okay, well, what's important to you? Like, which accounts are ones that you want to monitor over time? And there's limits to this. As you can imagine, monitoring entire accounts and the people within those accounts can be a challenge. So there were some limits. We had to make some decisions on that. Just can't be, the entire addressable database or universe out there of, 6 or 7 million accounts that you might be able to service. So the 3 core areas that we focused on was current customers, former customers, right? Super simple, high value. And then for us, target accounts, the folks that we know that even though they're not customers, if we win them, that we have a high conversion rate to winning them, and we have the most opportunity to drive value within those accounts. So for us, I believe that was, Christian, you probably know is better than I, but I think it was 10 or 20,000 accounts, somewhere in that range, that we're monitoring people that are coming in and leaving those accounts.
And I think I want to add here as well, like for the target accounts, I think that's so smart because we also say, like, track the people in opportunities that you're having. Like, they're not your customers yet. They're on the path to becoming that. And oftentimes, like, when you look into why opportunities stall, it's because my main driver left the account. And this means, as you talked a little bit about churn of a customer, which can happen, but in a sense, it's also a churn of an opportunity if my main contact leaves. And so my goal should be to quickly find someone new in that company and then track where this person went. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Yeah. So anybody kind of in pipeline. And here's some of the key insights that we laid out is, of course, the quick wins can just be monitoring customers, right? To get started. This is a really simple program. I was telling Christian right before we jumped on, I think I could probably do this conversation in 5 minutes, but for folks that want the details and the insights, we'll go through today's session and we'll likely land somewhere around 30 minutes. But really, it is about just identifying that market where you can have some quick wins. And for us, that started with customers and the POC, and we'll step through those different phases. That can get you that early buy-in and adoption. It didn't take, but 2 weeks to get full adoption across our global enterprise. And it was largely because the reps were seeing immediate results. And it was because we were loading the data into a tool to where they could message and reach out. Marketing was really sponsoring and funding the program, but we weren't necessarily feeling pressure to have to activate the leads ourselves. And we're going to talk through activation next. The other insight that you gave me, Christian, which we took advantage of, is we did actually look in other tools as well. For example, we have chat inside of our product. So anyone who is inside and using our product, which sometimes are not always just the buyers, but the users. And the users are just as influential, of course, in maintaining strong relationships. But we didn't have a strong connection between all of the users of the product on a day-to-day basis being represented in Salesforce in a strong way. So we went into chat. We were able to identify the users that have been using the tool. Sure enough, we gave Christian and team that list in the early part of a kind of proof of concept phase. And sure enough, it was 30% of our users who had logged in within I want to say who have used the product within a 6-month period were gone and had left the company or were identified as leaving the company. So that was shocking to us, and that's what really got us started there. Also, the product user base, as I mentioned, for us, that's kind of a blended model between the two. And then there's other CRMs and marketing automation platforms. Are there any other common tools that are not listed here, Christian, that you find customers are identifying power users within their ecosystem?
So I think you covered the most important ones, but I definitely want to highlight just how important this is, because the first thought everyone has is let me reach out to the buyer of the product. Let me see when they change their job. And I have these people in Salesforce. But what's so interesting is we always say you should optimize for love. And this oftentimes might not be the buyer, but the power users, the person that logs in every day. So having these people, bringing them maybe to your Salesforce, or at least bringing them once they change into your Salesforce, it's actually the first time that your sales and marketing has access or touch with the product users that usually only product management deals with. And then what's really interesting is you can, in addition to just bringing in the users, you can bring in the usage of them. How often did they log in? What's the NPS score? All of this information can be used then for segmenting who to reach out to and how to reach out to these people. And I think that's also part of the sequences that we're going to talk about.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. So just to finish off this kind of section, so I'll just open up the kimono here on exactly how we do it. We've got the current customers, former clients. I'm going to add now, Christian, make sure that we're tracking folks that are in pipe or recently in pipe. We have the target accounts, so that gives us a universe of accounts that we provide the UserGems. And what you guys do is you look at those accounts and you tell us who's coming and who's going. So that's a really nice way to say, I want to measure people I don't know. So when we get new people who enter into those accounts, those can spring up a UserGem. I did not include a screenshot, although now I'm thinking I should have, but within the Salesforce instance, within a record, we've got an object in there that says UserGems, and it says previous, account, certainly when it logs a UserGem, previous account, previous title, previous account type, were they a client, were they a prospect, kind of thing, and then the new role. So that's a very clean way to look at the data set and be able to track performance, which we'll show you. So we're monitoring those accounts. What we also do, Christian, is we gave you a list of people. And that list is much larger. We were just kind of talking about that list before we jumped on because I wanted to add a filter to it. But that list is a little over 50,000. So between those accounts you monitor, and then the people, or say these people, whenever they change any roles, whether they go into a client account or a target account or not, I want to know where these people go. And so that has been wildly successful. And then what you do is we work with you, Christian, to say, okay, now out of that data set, we find that there are, let's call it a couple thousand per month. Let's set up a drip feed of that weekly so that we can start to activate that. And we'll talk through a little bit more on those insights. So let's talk a little bit about Activate. What we had to do quite quickly, that I'll share with the community here, is we had to align this marketing initiative with the sales team, and specifically the sales development team. It doesn't take much. Again, this is an easy story to sell because you just tell them what I'm telling you now. We're monitoring previous buyers and new buyers and where they go. And I understand there's some people that might be watching this saying you can do that through other tools like maybe Sales Navigator. I believe you can. You can't do it at scale, and I can't do it with a level of kind of automation that I would like. So between sales, marketing, and RevOps, we automated the process as much as we could. So what that meant was we set up the drip feed. We set up how we wanted to do lead routing and lead assignment, because that had to take a little bit of finesse, especially when you had previous relationships with some customers that moved into new accounts. And then we also wanted to make sure that we could get the data all the way into a sequence or a tool that the sales development team or the sales team could start to message. And we'll actually look at some of the sequences that we're running and some of the performance on the next slide. And so that speaks to, again, having dedicated sequences. And so what we did is we're kind of set up in this way here. We've got previous customers or previous buyers going into new accounts, or I think it's new people coming into client accounts, I believe are the two, and we'll look at that in just one second. And they have nuances, right, between those two stories. So for example, these are two sequences that the team was running or is running. You can see there's 16 steps. I pulled out one step, which is basically the second step, which is the first message. I think the first step they go and they manually go and just hit the LinkedIn profile to kind of show, all right, this is valid. Maybe it registers a view that such and such is looking at your profile. And you can see here from new contact at a prospect account or a client contact at a prospect account, we see similar open rates, 65 and 67%. We don't have many clicks in any of these steps. It really is trying to get a reply and request of a meeting. But you can see of one, where somebody who may not know us, but they are at an account that is high value, we see a 14% reply, which is fantastic. And certainly somebody who knows us or has worked with us in the past going to a new account has had a 26% reply. I think any marketer, and again, any sales development rep or sales rep would be absolutely thrilled with those results. And that's why we got quick adoption on that. Second, I'll go one more second, and Christian, and then I want your thoughts on that. But I just want to, there's two ways that they approach this. One was, this was the first one, new contact, somebody we didn't know. And they're simply saying, congrats on the new gig at BrightTALk, let's say. And hey, I'm getting in touch because of, and they've worked to put some premise in there. They might put some additional data points via the snippet here. And they just make it nice, short and sweet, congratulating on them for arriving at XYZ company, and they'd love to work with them. The second one is slightly different, where it mentions your time at your previous company and your current company. And I've noticed that, you've used BrightTALk at some point, but more importantly, this premise. And then, again, we want to open up a conversation with you, and that's the one that's getting the 26%. What else have you seen out there? I mean, this is one example, Christian, but is this fit best practice? Are there other ways to think about how you might activate UserGems?
Yeah, thanks so much, David. This is fantastic. This is actually what I wanted to highlight. So you take, when you in the subject line, your time at, and that is then the past company, which is something that is automatically provided. So this means there's really no work for the sales rep to customize this or to personalize this. The first, the subject line, the first sentence that are so important in our outreach, they already automatically look customized. And we see so many people responding to these emails that like, hey, you did your homework and you already stick out because of this. And exactly what you're saying, like, we see several times the usual response rate if you reach out to past customers in this very personalized way. So I think this is fantastic. We sometimes see that, like, in the premise that you're mentioning, it could also be when you see that this person last used BrightTALk, let's say 6 months or 12 months ago, then you can mention all the new things that you did since they were your customer. Or you can mention the things that they used, if you have this information that they used, and remind them of this. And yeah, and for the other one, so the one on the left, which is you didn't have a previous relationship, but they joined as a new executive, your target account. In this case, as mentioned, it's really all about timing and speed. And oftentimes, this information is actually the hardest to get. If this person joined the company a week or 2 weeks ago, they're usually not in any of these B2B databases. So what we really care about is how quickly can we get to this information so you're the first person in. And because at this point, their inboxes aren't full, they don't have a lot of vendors they're yet in touch with. And that's why you're seeing these reply rates even if you never had a conversation with them. And these reply rates are usually much higher than what you would see for a cold outreach to a different person in the organization that has been there for several years.
Got it. Okay. Excellent. Well, there's a question in here. It's a valid question because I did not share this data on here, but it was, what's the volume of contacts that received those touches? And truth be told, Christian, and I didn't tell you this, when I calculated the ROI, I was calculating the ROI based off of all the data that we've received from you guys. Although when I was looking at the sequences, we still have yet to activate about 8,000 records that you've sent us. We've been processing those slightly different in a different region. So this data, to answer the question from the audience member, this is built off of, I want to say it was about 1,500 contacts. Now, some of those contacts were paused throughout the process, so they didn't receive all the steps. Some of them completed all of them, and then a certain percentage of them replied. But I thought it was, it was definitely a data set that would, that was kind of, it had the volume to be statistically relevant in this case. There's another question. I'll just get to the questions as we're going through so we don't miss them. But when mapping customer information, does UserGem get the generic email IDs like Gmail, Yahoo, et cetera, or their official email IDs? So
I don't know if you want me to jump in, also because there's another part about GDPR there.
Okay.
So we provide you with the business email address, and we're very precise on that. So there are some cases where we're not sure about the new email address, and then we don't provide it. We give it to you in about 75 to 80%. And when we give it to you, we typically see a bounce rate of less than 5%. And that's actually really hard because this person just joined, so they might not have sent a lot of emails. So getting this is really one of the things that we pride ourselves on being really good. And the other question that I think is so important is, like, how about GDPR compliance? And I'm Austrian, so I'm very familiar with GDPR and the whole rule in the EU. And the interesting part is actually that there's a directive in the GDPR that says, if you have customer information, you need to keep it up to date. Because if you advertise to them, if you sell to them, this should be done based on their latest information. So you don't do it based on wrong information. And that's why UserGems is not only GDPR compliant, but actually helps you be GDPR compliant by getting the latest information of your customers and by, for example, flagging whenever someone left so that you don't advertise to them anymore, or that don't send emails to email addresses that might either not exist anymore or someone else took over.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because we do that. When we do identify somebody has left the company, then we flag that record, turn it off, and turn on the new record. Okay, I think that answers that question. Certainly feel free to keep them coming through. I do want to continue to step through and see if we can. There was another question about how long this webinar is. I'm hoping to get us through it in the next 10, 15 minutes. So we'll just keep stepping through this story. So again, it's an easy story because it's identify, get some credits, get some data, put them on sequences where the reps are doing basically one-on-one outreach, and then test the performance of it. So I'll share where we're at. What we did was certainly we want to measure ROI and consumption. So that's how much pipeline was created and how many closed-won deals were generated. And then we also wanted to make sure that we were balancing lead consumption by rep so that we weren't. It actually got a little tense when we got the routing wrong one time and we had to kind of delete things and reroute them. I believe you remember that, Christian. It was tense because we were overloading some reps who were pleased with it, and other reps were not getting anything. And so we just had to bring more equality. So lead consumption by rep is something that we also monitor just to make sure that we're getting equal data sets across the different teams and regions. And then communicate wins internally was another thing. So share the wins and the ROI internally to drive further adoption. One way that we do internal marketing is we have an internal newsletter that goes out to the entire company every 2 weeks. It keeps them up to date on all the different programs we're running, and it has a section where we often will talk about ROI, show a particular deal or a particular program and how it's performing and how we won that business. So we're a big believer in internal communication or internal marketing, which again drives further adoptions. And then when you do have reps that are having success, that gets around for sure. And then it can make these programs quite successful because then people start asking, well, where are my UserGems?
Yeah, and I think you did such a good job on this because it's first about educating the reps that this exists and that they should reach out to these leads in a different way. Like as you mentioned, like you have different sequences; these are different types of people. So that's the first step that you did. But then to continue and keep the momentum, I think you did such a great job in continuously making sure everyone gets a good amount of leads, so they keep working on UserGems leads, and then obviously, as you said, like drive this and continuously drive this adoption by sharing their wins. Yeah.
There was a question that came in that said, can you share those sequences? I wasn't planning to share them in this session today, but feel free if you just connect with me on LinkedIn, write that in a question, and I can we can communicate about what exactly you'd like, but that's very possible.
Yeah, and just want to add here, we also have templates for this that we can share. So I'm happy to show you best practices based on the different types of people that you reach out to. And oftentimes what we say is specifically the first 1 or 2 steps should be customized towards the job change. And the later steps can actually just be from your typical outreach sequences. Like you already have this customized feeling because of the first few steps. And you can use this customization in your calls, like the same message in your calls, or even in your LinkedIn outreach.
Excellent. Cool. So you've got some good resources there as well. All right. So I'll just share. I just want to share what we did was, again, this was rather new to us. I hadn't seen a solution like this, Christian. So I'd asked to do a proof of concept. You were very accommodating of looking at an initial data set that was somewhat focused and tight. That got us some UserGems. And within the first quarter of this year on that POC, we won 1 deal right out of the gate. But that was a small data set. We quickly went in and continued and rolled out a second or a first batch, I guess you'd say, a first real batch of data. We picked up 6 deals in that second quarter. We won 1 of those. And then we really started to get the data to kind of drip through outside of kind of one-time deliveries. And we connected the systems and we made more sophistication in our routing. And you can see in the third quarter, we really picked up the pace with 21 deals where we won 7. So we've won 9 deals so far this year, and we've got 2 new ones in the pipe. Again, apologies, but we still have 8,000 records that we're trying to kind of work through, but we'll work through that this quarter and finish out the year strong. What's interesting is out of the 9 deals, when I compared the dollar amounts of those to the 14 that we've lost for whatever reason, we actually won more than we've lost, which I found to be quite an interesting stat. But again, this is, I looked at the total spend year to date, Christian. It's probably double on the ROI actually until we activate some of those newer records. But we're at about an 8.5% ROI on the investment versus the dollar ROI received just from this one program. So it's been a really successful program for us, and we still have, 5, 6, 7 open deals that they're working. So, is this is this the type of success companies like us will see?
Yeah, I think what you're doing is fantastic, like specifically also because you got this result so quickly. So super excited about this, but it's exactly what we are looking for when we connect with our customers, like, for example, 3 months later, like, what's the success that you're seeing? We measure ourselves based on the closed ones that we are generating. Like, what's the pipeline that you're seeing, and what's ultimately the closed one that you are seeing? And we want to see a multiple of the revenue that they're paying us, the contract value. And we definitely see this across all our customers.
Excellent. And I'll just say this report was run because you guys are also very generous, Christian, in the way that there are cases where we have a record that we told you to monitor, or asked you to monitor, and then we also might have a record that was created, like sales created it on their own, but there isn't a connection between the two. And so when you find, you asked me to monitor this record, you do see the job changes and you load it in, you tag it in a way that is not a net new, because you said, there's already a record in there, so we don't charge you for it, and we're trying to make the connection. So this is actually just looking at pipeline, where you guys identified a record that had a job change and it didn't exist already in our CRM. If I pulled out that filter, it was nearly double the amount of pipeline, as you could imagine. So it's a strict measurement.
Yeah, and oftentimes actually we see that even if you already have them in your Salesforce, just because at this point then you realize, hey, this is actually a past customer, maybe you reach out to them again, you reach out to them with a different message, or what we've also seen is you reach out to their manager and telling them, hey, just noticed someone in your company already worked with BrightTALK. Could this be interesting for you? So this opens up so many different avenues that even if you already have them in there, there are things you can do to reach out to them again.
Very nice. All right, I'll start to get us into the home stretch here. Just got one more thing, and then we'll get to some questions. So I see there's still a question or two here that are outstanding, and we'll get to that just in 1 second. But I would say the last thing I found is that even no matter how much momentum you have, any program that doesn't get continual kind of, if you're not championing continually these programs, or if you don't have a consistent drip in place to where you're getting this data on a weekly or monthly basis, they can fall away, or at least the success can diminish. So some of the key insights that we've had is we've identified a fixed day where we want to release new UserGems. It could be the first of the month. You could work with Christian and team to see it. Maybe it's every Monday. Whatever it works, however it works best for you, so that it's a gradual movement of leads into your system, and then automated and repeatable process. So we actually take the data, load it right into the prospecting tool, which I'd mentioned. So it removes the step of having to rely on the reps to get it into the prospecting tool from CRM. But Christian, there's also best practices around how you can think about integrating this into more omni-channel approach with other programs like direct mail, ABM. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more and more companies doing direct mail. From the ABM part, I mean, you're marketing, so we like to orchestrate the outreach between sales and marketing. So what actually works well is if you reach out to people that at the same time you put them into a advertising on LinkedIn, for example, through a managed audience. So in this case, you reach them through the emails, maybe the direct mail, but also through advertising.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. And then also going beyond demand prospecting, CSMs to present churn. This is the new area which I think that we should be dipping into, and just getting the CSMs involved earlier in the process when we see customers, active buyers who are leaving. Not only do they want to maybe touch with their active buyer, but more importantly, they need to now address they just lost a champion, right? Yeah. And they need to find who that new champion is, and start to make a relationship there. That's how you're seeing this being used at other companies as well.
Yes, absolutely. Oftentimes we start, as in your case, with the sales case, but sometimes they're really focused on preventing the churn because it's so important. And losing a champion is oftentimes the number one reason you lose the account. So the earlier you recognize this, and not just, let's say, 30 days before the account renewal, like the earlier you recognize this, the better you can focus on the account and really prevent this churn. So oftentimes what we do is like when there's a job change, we notify the CSM of the old account of that person, letting them know, hey, this person left. And then there's this new lead that we create and that gets routed out into the sales rep. And preferably even that the sales rep should look up who's the owner, who was the previous CSM of that person, and reach out to them and see, like, did you have a personal connection? Maybe it's best if we reach out together to this person.
Very nice. All right, I'm going to get to questions, Christian. I'm just going to come back. We can get back on video and answer maybe a question or two here. So there's one around any chance you can speak on the conversions from MQLs reached out to meetings scheduled to close business. Now, I'll say in my case, I don't MQL these. It would be a simple MQL, and it would increase the volume of MQLs, but we don't MQL these. We just monitor this as a different program. So I didn't bring this data, but I mean, we can kind of get at the answer in a kind of a roundabout way, I suppose. So like I mentioned, there was about 1,400 leads loaded into these two sequences between the two different reply rates. We'll call it 18%. So you could take kind of that math of maybe 1,400 records, maybe an 18% reply rate. And then I think we showed that we had at least 30 opportunities created out of that. So I don't have the meeting conversion rate. And certainly I think everybody's results will shift, but I do think that anybody that has buyers that go from company to company and typically bring along their marketing strategy, or would if you were engaged early on in that 100-day period, if you think you can have success there, then there's a good chance you would with this particular tool.
Yeah, and just some numbers that we are seeing. So at least from outreach to opportunity rate for these leads compared to, let's say, cold outreach, we're seeing about a 3x conversion rate.
Okay. Got it. All right. And then it's another question here. Sounds like a cross-function initiative. Who would typically be the owner, sales or marketing? How would the attribution work? I don't know, Christian. I mean, I suspect you probably sell to marketing oftentimes, right? It is a cross-functional initiative, or is it more often a sales initiative for you?
I'm still not 100% like convinced it's one or the other. Like I would say, if I look at the conversation that we have, it's like 50-50 sales and then like marketing and demand generation. I have to say there are some companies where marketing also runs the SDR organization. That I think it's a little bit more clear-cut that it's marketing. But it's like what we want this to be is like cross-functional, and oftentimes the budget comes from marketing, the tracking comes from marketing, because ultimately it's their job to make sales and SDRs like successful in that sense. So they support the SDRs there.
Yeah. So that's how it works in our case. SDR is really under sales leadership. We did have some inbound reps under marketing this year, kind of switched that out kind of mid-year to optimize the teams. But this was just an easy one for us to sponsor. I knew it was one that this is where you have to kind of think about what's best for the company, maybe not what's best for the team, right? This is a best for the company scenario with a data point that we know is of high value and will convert well. So we sponsor it. We don't actually do a multi-touch attribution on this. We do if we take the data and actually put them through a marketing campaign. We would actually source the marketing campaign that they came through as having some attribution involved in this process. Otherwise, we just do a clear-cut measurement on, it was a new record, it was from this vendor, it's marked as a user gem, and it went into an opportunity. And it makes it very simple for us to get an ROI and be able to share the story internally with our stakeholders.
Yeah, I like it. It should benefit the company. Like that's ultimately the goal there.
I agree. Well, that's it. I think we've got most of our questions worked out, Christian. So I'm just going to encourage anybody that has any interest. Again, I'm not getting anything out of this this relationship, but again, it is about marketers kind of sharing best practices, what's working for you. I found that this program worked for us. I think others within the BrightTALK community would find some value. So certainly reach out to Christian or UserGems if you'd like to learn more. Of course, you can learn more about BrightTALK from the attachments below. You can connect with both of us. I really appreciate everyone joining us today. Thank you, Christian, for sharing your story and for being a good vendor with us, good partner.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Great to be here with you.
All right, lovely. Again, on behalf of Christian, myself, BrightTALK, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.